this series, we call this the Soulful Aging Tour. And Jack's right.
You have to get closer to the
It
microphone.
started here. I did a duo reading with Jack about mountain life, and then I did one with Mara, and then Catherine and I got together and started doing them. And this one we're going to do tonight is called Fairy Godmother's Midnight in the Art of Archetype. And we mean to enchant you. And this is added to, the first one we did here was called Grief and Relief, Finding Voice, Reveries of Losing Our Minds, the Death Class reading. I think that could be it. Anyways, we've been friends for a long time. I've been to every single festival here, and we just realized that we have a lot in common, and fairy tales is one. I was raised working class, not much of a family with literature, but we always had nursery rhymes and fairy tales and books, which really fed me. You know, I'd take a walk and always think about leaving stones, like breadcrumbs and things like that. And always worried about Peter Rabbit. That story scared me because I kept thinking he was going to get caught. So these are instilled in us, these fairy tales. So these poems have a theme with that. Do you want to say anything?
So I also grew up with fairy tales. I can remember my mother reading them and changing voices. She did Billy Goat Scruff, like really, really good. But when I go backwards, I also feel like being brought up in the Catholic Church, the stories about the saints were kind of like fairy tales and folk tales. And so carrying it through to, it was so great, you know. Candlelight was reading fairy tales and stories to my sons, and later would be studying them. Bruno Bettelheim, maybe some of you know, the uses of enchantment, incredible psychologist that he was maybe 30, 40 years ago. And it occurred to me also, I just got back from a month-long pilgrimage in Ireland, well, 3 weeks ago, so it's beginning to fade. But, you know, Ireland is the land, fairies, bards, kings, stories, and spellbinding. So we would like to enchant you tonight and ensorcel you with a few, they're our own stories mixed with fairy tales, and I think some of you will recognize yourselves. But just, you know, around the fire, the bards would be telling the story, right? And children would fall asleep as the stories were happening. So drift off wherever you'd like to go. You may not go all the way to Tiernanog, but, you know, it's a pretty cool place there in Ireland, even here.
And also keep in mind that fairy tales have a dark side, and so doesn't our poetry.